Welcome to Pod Caviar. Today we have a great episode. It is dealing with some hikers that went missing and ended up dying in 1959 in Soviet Russia. Yeah. I am with the host of 1 Gram Army, Graham.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm excited. You didn't warm me up to any of this at all.
No, I didn't know. Yeah. This is just how I want to do it.
Hikers went missing, and then you included Soviet Russia.
Right. Yeah.
I'm riveted.
Yeah. Hold on, right? Before we get into this...
we can take a break.
No. Let's not take a break. Matter of fact, tell them, if you could, you just let them know about the past episode that we just did, which was amazing and unbelievably efficient. And I'm going to write some notes here real quick.
Oh, yeah. Just to speak to our own qualities, to toot our own horns, if you will. Me and Tony just did an episode of the 1 Gram Army podcast. If you haven't subscribed to that, I encourage you to, obviously. But Tony is on there regularly. We usually cover a variety of topics. It's usually a little more silly. I don't really know how to describe it. I keep trying to come up with a way to describe the difference between our podcasts.
Yeah.
But it's like you start with a topic. On my podcast, we find one.
Right. Yeah. But we always put out great
absolutely.
content,
but it always ends up the same way. You end up talking about something different than what you started with. It's good. And Tony comes. Right. We have good conversations. That's what it is. Both podcasts. We have good conversations. I think I'm going to give up trying to differentiate the two in any way, unless they're solo projects or I have I'm doing an interview.
Yeah,
but
that's pretty much the difference right there.
That's it. And so when we did the last episode of 1 Gram Army, I had a bunch of topics and we killed it. Boom, boom, boom. You got one. We got one. Yeah. There was like a joke. There was a discussion. On to the next topic.
Right.
And that is a result of us being
not fucked up.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Being ferociously sober by comparison to the last episode of Pod Caviar, if you're familiar with that one.
But the Dyatlov Pass, I'm pretty sure, I think that's how you say it, but there are 9 hikers. There were 10 hikers, but one guy got sick, so he ended up staying back. There were 9 hikers.
Was there background on these hikers, like how old they were? Do you know
were,
I guess college students?
They were college-age students. Yeah. They weren't too old, but they were experienced hikers. This wasn't their first time being doing a hike, doing hiking and all that shit, stuff. Right? And they went out to the pass, and then a couple days, people didn't hear from them when they were supposed to come back. So they sent a search party out there, and then they found their campsite, and then they found the bodies in suspicious. They were left dead in suspicious manner. So. There was never an official reason what happened or story. Mm-hmm. When that happens, we're left with theories.
Obviously.
And even if this is the first time you've listened to Pod Caviar, go back and listen to the old episodes. There have been many times where conspiracy theories will just go rampant. And we're going to go down the list of what may or may not have happened. And I'm just going to name it, and then I'm going to give my thoughts on it and the information that I found about it, and then I want you to, throw in your 2 cents.
Yeah, it's entirely possible we'll come up with a new theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, to piggyback off of what you said, that is generally what happens when you have a story where you have either an unsatisfying reconciliation of the information, just like we just talked about on my podcast where we talked about Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
You have either like an unsatisfying finish to the story, or you have a account of the story that's full of holes. Sometimes you have a complete account that makes perfect sense. But
You're right.
But in those first 2 scenarios, almost always you end up with you get to speculate wildly, which is always fun.
And I think that in this story, once we get through everything, we're going to pretty much say, this is pretty much what happened, because it just makes the most sense. But because that's not the official story, when you have situations like this, conspiracy theories will always have that, but you never know. Right. They have that card where they just slap it down on the table. You never know the truth. It could be this, or it could be that. And that's just... This is how it is, but it's interesting.
They're
nonetheless.
fun to me. They're fun thought experiments. I'm not someone who subscribes to these insane theories. Right. Generally, I'm somebody who sees like, well, here's a hole in the information. There's not really any objective or reasonable explanation for that hole.
Right.
And I don't mind speculating. I don't mind kicking those ideas around, but I'm definitely not like someone who's like, I heard someone say something wholly improbable and they filled in that gap of the information and now I believe that as if it were my religion.
Yeah.
You know, which is something you come across with conspiracy theories.
Of course,
pretty regularly.
Every time you talk to them. But anyway, we're looking at 9 hikers who died at during a hike in the Soviet Union in 1959.
Was
during
it
the
10?
Cold War?
Did it start with 10? You said one person survived?
One person survived. He got sick and he went back. So before they really started the hike, at the earliest stages, he went back and then they pressed on.
Oh, so he wasn't there when they died.
No.
He's not a witness or anything.
No. I mean, if he was, then shit, there wouldn't be a question at all, you know?
When you said dead, well, people still question it. They'd find a way to question
it.
They'd be like, that guy, whatever.
Yeah,
but
right.
Now, when you said they died under mysterious circumstances, I don't want to brush past that if possible, just because I have no information about this story.
Right.
How were they found?
Scattered all over the place. Some of them were
about a campsite or just all over the woods?
All over the woods. Yeah, no, we're gonna get into this. No, it was some of them were clothes, had more clothes. That means they took clothes off the dead people, and then Yeah.
Damn.
Right. So, since they were hiking in the middle of a winter and they have their campsite, there were the obvious thing is an avalanche. Okay, that's theory number 1. To me, the most probable theory.
They weren't buried under snow, though, right?
No, they weren't. See, that's what I was going to say. The thing is, a lot of the theories, or for the avalanche, and the sub-theory is what I'll say is that they heard the avalanche coming, so they left their tents or their campsite in a hurry, which is probable.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah,
moved pretty quick.
Yeah, but the way that the campsite, or not the campsite, but the way that the tent and everything was found was not something that an avalanche would do, because an avalanche, of course, a large wave of snow would destroy everything. That wasn't the case. What they found was the campsite, the tents had slits cut in them that the campers left out of. And from what I found, these tents are pretty big. They were pretty big enough for them to have supposedly a kitchen or some sort of stove in them that was there at the campsite, but it was never assembled. So they didn't have a chance to assemble that. Whatever happened quickly.
And probably not in the middle of the night, because had they set up camp, all that stuff would have been set up.
Right. Ooh. So, So we got avalanche, and I think that's the most probable one. Not an avalanche hit, but more so somebody thought that an avalanche was coming, and then it's more of a, hey, an avalanche is coming, we got to get the fuck out of here. They left in a hurry, so some of them didn't get all their gear.
And some of them maybe weren't dressed.
Right. Entirely. Yeah, they weren't dressed properly.
But somehow, then why did they die so fast?
Well, some of them, some people, like 2 of them got broken away from the group.
Okay.
They got split up somehow, and the way the pass was, there's a cliff. So supposedly 2 or 3 of them fell off that cliff.
Okay.
So I'm thinking it happened in the middle of the night. They couldn't see.
Right.
So they fell off that cliff, and they're rushing. Everything is hectic. It's chaotic.
I feel like the kitchen and stove and things not being assembled leads me to believe that maybe it wasn't nighttime, because unless they were just exhausted, they set up camp. They're like, let's
which is
sleep.
possible. I think
it's totally possible
could be that. Yeah.
That they could have got up they planned to get up in the morning.
Right.
And then carry on with putting all their shit together.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. But so in the scope of how they were found, were there people at the base of a cliff and some people up at the top of the cliff?
There were people in a wooded area that was down a ways from the campsite. So let's say the campsite is up here at the top of a ravine so much.
Okay.
And then the tree line is down here. So some were found here. The campsite is up here, and then I guess if you could go down a ways from the campsite, there's a cliff and a lake down at the bottom where some bodies were found.
Damn.
Supposedly they fell off that cliff and landed down there in the lake.
Okay. So we're definitely looking at something that pushed them all the same direction. At least, even if their trajectories were off.
Yeah,
they're all going the same cardinal direction.
It's something pushed them away from the campsite.
Damn.
That much we know of.
I don't want to play spoiler alert here, and if I'm stepping on your toes, let me know. But has anyone theorized bears being involved in this?
Wildlife was theorized, but there were no tracks of wildlife. They were also
got to imagine though those disappear pretty quick in that wilderness.
Well, yeah, you would think so, right?
With all the snow and such.
Yeah, possibly. I guess the bodies when they were found, there was trauma to some of the bodies that an animal would not be able to produce. And I'm talking about like compression, not blunt force trauma, but something crushing somebody, which leads me to believe that an avalanche could have been it, because when you get buried under tons of snow. And so then this compression wasn't just present on the people who fell off the cliffs. I mean, I'm not trying to be a dick, but obviously you fall off a cliff, you're going to be compressed in some regard. But that's wow. Right. All right. So what else do people think? Let's see. They were near a secret Soviet military base, so people were thinking that military had tested some parachute mine. Parachute mines. They're kind of like the what do we have here in America? The mines that come up and they spin around.
The bouncing betties.
The bouncing betties.
So maybe some sort of air burst explosion.
Right. Yeah. They thought that was what happened that killed them. And not necessarily killed them, but spooked them enough to where they got the hell out of the
because that would obviously be air burst military grade explosives.
Right.
Even within like a mile probably would be enough to have you shit in your pants.
And there were witness reports of orange balls of energy, quote unquote, that were seen in that area before, and that leads people to believe that the military was doing some sort of testing that ultimately led to the demise of this team. Going to that, on a lesser scale, there were radioactive measurements on some of the clothing on some of the hikers. Now, before we get too deep into that, it could be because when they weren't hiking, some of them were working in a laboratory that dealt with radioactive material.
That's highly possible.
Yeah, this isn't something that was off the scales radioactive, but still
left a residue. Well, and I mean, I'd like to say too, we're talking about 1959, right? The Soviet Union. At that point in time, humanity, regardless of whether it was America or Russia or whoever was in charge, humanity was irradiating the planet at an alarming rate. I mean, just exploding nuclear devices all the time.
Yeah.
The more I think about it now, the more likely I feel that those people were killed by an airburst nuclear weapon, although I would need more information about like what else was destroyed, like where they were.
Yeah.
Was it just far enough away that the shock wave was enough to blow them about?
I mean, and it could have.
That blew them all about,
because when you talk about
didn't knock over all the trees, because a human body obviously is going to fly through the air.
Oh, yeah.
Much more easily than you're going to knock down some Siberian tree.
Of course, yeah.
You have to imagine those,
exactly.
Some of those trees are like.
And then when you talk about the Soviet secret base, where people have been witness to finding soldiers out there, and it was supposedly built inside of a cave or at the side of a mountain.
That's supposed to be in the region where this happened?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
They're testing the fortification of that base with an airburst nuclear weapon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Shit.
I mean, that's totally probable. Plausible.
I guess maybe my inclination is to blame the Soviets because it happened in Soviet Russia.
Right, yeah.
Obviously that means ignoring the fact that Siberia is enormous.
Yeah.
It's like the lungs of the planet. There's so many trees there.
Yeah.
But is that not part on the list? Is a nuclear weapon not a accepted conspiracy theory?
Just under the military test that was spoken of, but it wasn't really.
But they're trying to be silly and be like it was like some sort of reverse engineered alien technology. Like
aliens were on the list, but I'm not going to even.
I think you could airburst a nuclear weapon at a distance and height where it would throw people all over the woods and not necessarily destroy the woods.
They don't really understand nuclear weapons, and they don't really understand the power of nuclear weapons.
Right. And I'm talking about like, the edge of the strike zone, if you will.
Yeah.
This is just obviously speculation, but if you're at the edge of the strike zone there where the shockwave is still strong enough to fuck you up, but you're far enough away that the shockwave isn't strong enough to, destroy all the rocks and trees in front of you.
Yeah.
And then how far away would that? And then that explosion would have to be so far away that you may not see any immediate evidence of it at the spot where you found those bodies.
Yeah, even the trees were there was some damage on the top of the trees that some of the bodies were found of that wasn't really explained, but we'll get into that. The next theory was hypothermia.
Sorry, dude, I feel like I'm right.
I mean, yeah, no. What you said,
I have very little evidence. A very little evidence.
What you said sounds off because
this.
when I was reading the theories and they were like, well, supposedly it's a secret Soviet base right there, and they were testing weapons. I was like, yeah, that's obviously what happened. I mean, of course, you're in the Soviet Union. People died under suspicious fucking circumstances
all the time.
The official records were sealed for years.
It's 1959. How far away are you from them detonating the largest largest explosion in the history of our solar system?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't I'm with you in that. I don't mean to like shit on the theory.
Yeah.
And I have like I said, I haven't seen any pictures. Right. I haven't seen any, I don't know anything really specific. I have no information other than what you gave me, and you've researched it. And so if you're leaning that way, that's definitely where I'm at.
Yeah, the other ones are like hypothermia where,
they run and they take their clothes off.
Yeah, but if for people who don't know, hypothermia, it does something where it's called pyridoxal undressing, where you feel like you're really hot, but you're not.
When you're freezing.
If anybody who has grown up in a cold region, a really cold region up north, and you go outside as a kid, you play in the snow, after a while your hands are frozen, but it feels kind of hot.
Yep.
So, but it's not hot. It's very cold.
Yeah, and if you were to continue to expose yourself to that, you would eventually, your hands would feel super hot because your skin was burning.
The reason why...
real quick, do you know that to the extremes of temperature, if you were to touch something that was like, if you touch liquid nitrogen, it would be the same as touching something hot at the opposite end of the spectrum as far as the way you perceived it, like with your touch. Yeah, like cold, you actually perceive freezing and burning, like if a freeze or a burn, like a freezer burn, you experience them actually the same way. The only way you differentiate them is those the outside the strike zone again, like the outer area where you feel the ambient temperature, where you can tell if it's cold or if it's hot. But yeah, if you were to stick your arm on something that was freezing cold and it burned your arm, it'd be the same as sticking on something super hot. Like that actual spot that immediately dies. Yeah, you'd feel it kind of the same way.
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not necessarily. I heard that. So.
All right. The thing, but the thing about the hypothermia is that all of these were experienced hikers. They weren't just some guys that were like, "Hey, let's go hiking."
Right. So it's unlikely they're gonna let themselves get wet and cold and just drop their core body temperatures.
Even then, it'd be a series of events that would lead them to that. But
and it would have been maybe one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going to be all of them.
Worst case, two.
Right, right. And they're not going to just lose their shit like that because they're experienced.
Yeah, and all the other people aren't just going to let it happen.
Exactly.
They don't know
exactly.
About it. Yeah,
so, we can go past that one, and we can go past the next one, which is a Yeti.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about this a little bit,
Discovery Channel did a special about this where they really leaned on the Yeti. Is it's not the person, but the being,
the entity
responsible for killing these people. A Yeti.
Look, I'm willing to. Here's something I'm willing to accept. Crazy shit in the ocean.
Okay.
Every time we think of something crazy in the ocean, we find some kind of evidence for it. And I'm not talking about the Loch Ness monster because that's supposed to be a dinosaur in a fucking lake in Scotland.
Of course, yeah.
We're talking about the ocean when giant squids were like sort of a scientific. Oh my God! Sorry, I'm watching the baseball game. Yeah. But, so sort of a scientific theory that they existed because they would find like bits and pieces of them, and then they would see giant sperm whales with these scars on them, and eventually, after like hundreds of years of exploring the ocean, they found credible evidence of the existence of giant squids. Okay?
Oh yeah, no, that's real.
And we've talked about this before. And I mentioned it on a podcast back in the Sports with Capital F days. The ocean is basically like upside down outer space.
It is, yeah.
You know, it's very much more accessible and explorable, but we understand less about the so. Blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. You say there's a monster in the ocean, and you have very little evidence of it, but you have some evidence, I'm inclined to believe you.
That means,
because it could be there.
Yeah.
And especially if you can explain how it survives and its ecosystem there. But look, Discovery Channel did another documentary, I believe it was Discovery Channel at one point, where they basically tried to go places in the world where humans had just never been, where there was like no signs of man.
Right.
And almost everywhere they went, they found a lot of places, they found shell casings or empty cans.
Oh shit,
or a shoe.
Yeah, which means somebody's been there.
Someone's skull.
Of course.
Because like people go places.
Right.
And they're all over the place. And just, outside of the somehow accepted theory in the Bigfoot community is that, they can make themselves disappear. They can make themselves look like a deer. They can make themselves look like a tree. So now I'm like, okay, now we're not even talking about like a missing link, like a thing that you're telling me may exist.
This is when it falls apart,
right? Is that it has special powers?
Yes. That means I could be doing a podcast with you. I leave for the day, and as soon as the door shuts and I pull off, all of a sudden you're a fucking Yeti. You're fucking Harry from Harry and the Hendersons.
That's why I walk around the house. I just have to be careful not to blow all these door frames out.
Exactly.
Or literally, there are people who claim to have seen Bigfoot, and when you hear their stories, they're like, yeah, this deer ran out in front of me and looked at me, and its eyes looked really weird, and then it ran off, and as it ran off, its sound got funny, I knew that was Bigfoot shape-shifted into a deer.
A deer, yeah.
But you can't have it both ways, folks. You can't.
No, you can't.
And listen, there were lots of different variations of what we are.
Right.
Before us, we just won.
We were the winners of that. Yeah,
right.
And that's proven.
Right. And so if you're telling me like, okay, some little tiny population of those things survived, okay, I'm willing to entertain that.
Cool, yeah.
Theoretically, but obviously we've never seen them.
Right.
Credibly, you would think as much as time as people spend outside and the destruction of parts of outside that you can't see increases, that eventually at this point we would have some pretty solid evidence. When your explanation for that is that they're shapeshifters, I'm like, well, now what the fuck are we talking about?
Right.
We're talking about a less sophisticated being than ourselves.
That has more sophisticated traits. It
has fucking a cloaking device. So we got totally fucking Cleons and Romulans are on the planet. But they're also apes that don't have a language,
of course,
or a society, and have never considered like, hey, we're a lot bigger than these people. Maybe we could be the dominant species,
right?
Because they could certainly take over like a town. They could. If there were that many, they could take over Spokane, Washington.
Yeah,
and just be like, this is our town.
Yeah. No, we're here. We deserve rights. We've been here before you. Right. And if you don't like that, we'll fight you and beat you.
And we'll pull your heads off of your shoulders.
We'll fuck you up.
Yeah, but that hadn't happened.
But a Yeti
so we're definitely not related to that.
Somebody said Yeti, and then people ran with that shit. But at the same time, like we said, a Yeti would probably rip them to fucking pieces. Yeah. Because it's a superior being, quote unquote, allegedly, or theoretically. Allegedly, yeah. So, the next theory is a love triangle, argument, alcohol.
Well, you don't ever want to rule that kind of thing out, but again, we're talking about a lot of people.
Right.
So it's like, okay, 3 or 4 people.
It's 9 people we're talking about here.
Yeah, I just feel like some of 9 people would have been not affected by whatever affected the rest of them.
No.
Which also to me rules out like, oh, they were all on acid.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean that was one of it too, where they found some mushrooms supposedly.
Well,
which could have happened.
Yeah, I mean, you can consider the idea that maybe they ate some sort of weird psychedelic mushrooms. I mean, I feel like if they'd been poisoned to death by the mushrooms, maybe they wouldn't have all been found in those weird. No,
they would have been in their tents dead.
Yeah. So I mean, and again though, if you're talking about someone having a psychotic break from taking psychedelics, you've just somehow found the 9 out of 9 people. None of them are going to be like, ooh, I probably ought to get in my sleeping bag.
Right.
I'm going to just be warm and ride this out.
Yeah.
Not one of those people.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think that, I don't think 9 of them would have taken the shrooms. And then even if 9 of 9 are going to freak out.
Yeah.
If that happened, then they have the strongest, most psychedelic shrooms ever in the history of psychedelic drugs.
And look, I'm not a doctor, but I feel like if those mushrooms existed, I would have heard about them.
Yeah. I mean, they would have been the Dyatlov mushrooms,
right?
And people would have,
they would have studied their properties. We'd be using them as a weapon right now. If it was like, oh, this is guaranteed to cause a psychotic episode to 9 out of 9.
How can we make this airborne? That way we can drop it in.
Seems unlikely.
The other theory is the CIA was involved in trading nuclear material, and that's why there were nuclear readings on some of the clothes. There was supposed to be some sort of meeting that happened, and that it went awry. So there was a fight, and then probable, but kind of Hollywoodish.
No, yeah. Well, it just seems.
You're talking about in the Cold War era.
Right. It seems unnecessary though. Yeah. To have this clandestine meeting deep, you're at the CIA.
Yeah,
you're deep inside of Russia.
You were in Soviet Russia,
like
deep
way
remote area.
Yeah, you don't have them meet you at the wall.
Which okay, if you want to do that, it's a remote area. Fine. Is it practical?
The risk of going that deep into
it.
It's like when they shot down that U-2 spy plane.
Right.
Like you would. I just don't think you're going to risk going that deep in there. And then for it to end that way seems pretty fucking silly.
What are you gaining out of that? What is the CIA gaining out of doing that?
Right. We're putting all that risk out to understand what's 9 hikers can tell them.
Yeah. And then shit hit the fan. So.
Yeah, seems unlikely. We are sort of talking about the time period of like the MK Ultra experiments and stuff, and I mean, I guess that's possible too, that maybe these hikers were exposed to something. But again, like we said, 9 out of 9 people.
9, yeah.
I just think the distribution, the way of as you've described it to me, the distribution of the bodies leads me to believe there was some sort of violent. Event, like some. And you were saying that trauma
they cut their way out of the tent, so it wasn't like they fucking unzipped it or they had a door and shit, because as well as I know, there are some tents that have like doors, like no shit doors, because they're big enough. And I'm thinking that if they had a big enough tent to where they could have a kitchenette and everything, then they probably had a real door. But these motherfuckers cut their way out of the tent and then hauled ass. So that's like, that's quick.
How about this? You're in your fucking tent. You see the fucking flash. From a nuclear explosion at that distance. And you have to get away from that as quickly as possible.
You know what? Now that I think about it, it may be a mix of military testing and the avalanche.
Could have been. The avalanche could have been caused.
That's what I'm saying.
Testing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
My only real critique of the avalanche theory is just that they weren't covered in snow.
That's true.
And they weren't blocks of ice.
Or they thought that it was an avalanche. So to a lesser extent, the avalanche, but more of the military testing where they heard some shit in the background and they're like, oh shit, that's an avalanche.
Yeah, could have been that also. Yeah, because it would have been a rumble approaching.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, that shotgun would have been like that's true too.
Yeah.
And but then also you can consider that like some of them, because I'm sure they all didn't cut themselves out of the tent. Maybe someone saw that flash and went, oh yeah,
somebody has to have seen it.
World War III is happening right now. I gotta get out of this tent. Yeah. And then they took off running and were blown off the side of the cliff. Look, dude, we were super efficient on my episode of my podcast. I think we fucking solved the mystery here.
I think we did, yeah. I mean, we did. Because the only other one was like ball lightning, which, I mean, that could happen. But
I thought about that when you were saying the balls of energy, but I feel like as far as that level of conspiracy theory, now you're just someone who's into ball lightning. You're like, maybe ball lightning did this.
Yeah. Oh no, there was another one. What is it? Shit. Infrasound. Okay, so where they set up their tent, it was supposedly behind. There's a ridge of mountains, so they set up their campsite there. Apparently, the wind came around the mountain ridge and caused an infrared sound. It's a vortex that causes a frequency of sound. When heard, it causes people to lose their shit. Not. I honestly, I don't think that's it.
I just feel like at some point that would have happened somewhere where people documented it.
Yeah, right.
As many places as people have been.
Yeah.
At some point.
The only thing that I found is that when that happened, it was theoretically, and then they produced it in like a fucking what is it? Like a laboratory.
Right.
It was a controlled experiment.
Yeah.
So.
Well. Yeah. But I have to imagine too, though, the variables and factors in actually accomplishing that are difficult to attain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it would have to be
the chances of them setting up their place in a section of a rig that would cause infrasound that extreme to where they lost their shit.
Ever recorded infrasound in this place?
No,
ever
I don't think so.
After?
I don't think it has been there.
Yeah.
No.
I've heard a lot of wacky stuff about sound, being guys into sound, like the brown note, which isn't a real thing.
Right.
There's all these things people claim the ability to do with sound, where you can like reach the resonance frequency of anything with sound you can produce, and you could bring down a skyscraper with sound, and it's like but the mechanism with which you would produce that sound would be highly conspicuous and we're talking comically large, and even then it would have to be very targeted, it would be very specific, very specific.
Like you said, the specificity, is that a word? Specificity, it's the specificity. I think that's more.
I think it's
the specificity of an infrasound is very. And I don't think
seems so goddamn unlikely.
Yeah. So, like you said, man, I think the military test of a secret base in that area, Soviet Union. Yeah. Tested some shit. The fucking parachute mines.
It sounds wacky, but it seems to me to be the most plausible.
Yeah, when you put all of the shit together, it seems like that's what happened. And other than that, they were when they found the bodies and then they had the funerals. There were reports that they put the bodies in lead caskets or whatever because of the radioactive compounds. But I did some research into that, and the radioactivity wasn't anything that would warrant them being put in lead caskets.
They weren't irradiated to the point where they would poison the earth more than a lead box.
Yeah, but anytime anybody hears radiation, they said that the bodies were off color and that they looked like something that was similar to people who were exposed to radioactive materials, but at the same time, because the bodies were out there for so long in that environment, it would cause the same thing.
Jeez.
Yeah,
so it'd be difficult to tell the difference.
Yeah.
It'd be difficult to infer.
Yeah. And the bodies were out there for a little while before they got found. Animals came out there and ate some of them, their faces and whatever.
Dude, I think I'm going to use this episode as an advertisement for your podcast. I'm going to make this a bonus episode of my podcast.
Yeah,
when
please
you're done
do.
With
it.
And then I'll just play, and then the people will see what I was trying to orate.
Right.
About how much more how much more focused the discussion is on your podcast. As a matter of fact, and I think people have done podcasts on it, and I think that I'm pretty sure Radiolab did one because they do everything. But also one day, maybe a fun thing to cover, obviously not this time around, is about the doctor in Japan who was present at both bombings?
Yes.
That guy.
That unfortunate motherfucker.
Dude.
Wow. Yeah, wow.
What sort of day?
What luck?
Yeah.
Have you had to be there at fucking Hiroshima? You survived Hiroshima. And this motherfucker was like, I never want to go through that again. Glad I survived that. Hopefully it never happens again.
I'm getting out of here.
I got to get out of here, man. I'm moving to Nagasaki, though.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's going to be good over there. And then there was going to be a third nuclear bombing, but the president, who was the president? Was it Roosevelt?
Truman.
Truman.
Who dropped the bombs,
He stopped the third one because he didn't know about the second one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole thing, too. He didn't know the second bomb was dropped. He was like, whoa. The military doesn't just get to decide, because that was originally.
That's what it was, though.
There was no regulate. They were like the military was just like, oh sweet, we got these new bombs. Use them when we want to.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Imagine being in that fucking briefing there.
Yeah, that happened in Korea. That was if the military had been left in charge, because in the Korean War, the UN American Army had pushed the North Koreans all the way up to almost the border of China.
Yeah.
And then like 2 million Chinese soldiers poured over that border and pushed us back to where the demilitarized zone is now.
Right.
And there was a lot of discussion about dropping a nuclear bomb on those Chinese troops as they came pouring over that border.
Right.
Like, well,
we got one. So
this now. We had a bunch of them.
We got one left over from World War II.
Yeah,
so we just been building them.
Yeah. Could have easily went that
way.
Yeah. Could you imagine if that would have been the future of war, just peppering the earth with tactical nuclear weapons? Because we did plenty of damage irradiating the atmosphere and blowing them up for fun.
Yeah.
But imagine if that was like the case in war.
Yeah.
It was just like, these two armies go to war with each other, and now they just start lobbing nukes at one another.
Yeah.
We'd already set the precedent for bombing civilians because, the Germans did it to the British. And then, that became part of how World War II was fought.
That.
That just became how World War II was fought. With bomb civilian cities. The
so if we did that in the Korean War,
Tokyo.
and then, India and Pakistan, they both have nuclear weapons. And there's been times where they're like, there have been no shit instances recently. This is recently within the past decade where they be like, you got nuclear weapons? Well, so do we. What are you trying to do? And it's like, two bros outside the club
with nuclear bombs strapped to their
fucking
backs.
drunk. They're fighting over the same girl. What do you want to do, bro? What do you want to do, bro?
They're right next to each other.
Exactly.
No, and the idea of Pakistan having them terrifies me, because obviously Israel has them.
Yeah.
And Pakistan and Israel not big fans of each other.
No, they're not.
And then Pakistan is super unstable. Like, it's sort of one of those countries that could be overthrown and a new regime. I mean, it's a hotbed for terrorism.
Yeah.
Someone taking over who's crazy isn't that hard to imagine. And then now you have India and Israel. So now let's say there's a coup in Pakistan, and India and Israel don't like the guy who takes charge in Pakistan.
They're done.
But both of those countries have nuclear weapons, and now Pakistan has nuclear weapons, and maybe they feel like they need to preemptively attack Israel and India. And then that obviously drags us into a big way.
Because if you attack Israel, then we're gonna go.
Yeah, we definitely don't. Yeah. We definitely, as
a
country,
thing.
We have very little concern for what Israel does.
Yeah,
the things they do are not their fault, and we support them 100%.
It doesn't matter what Israel does. Yeah, we're like, Israel's gonna Israel. Yeah.
All right,
but that was the whole thing about the Nuclear Proliferation Pact and the UN in general is like, hey, maybe we don't want to do that.
It's difficult though when you hear a guy like Muammar Gaddafi go, if a nuclear weapon is a bad thing, why do you have them?
Yeah.
If it's a good thing, why can't I have them?
Exactly.
And you go, well.
I
mean, I don't really have a very good argument.
Well, you made up a good point. Instead of answering that, we're gonna kill you.
Yeah,
you're dead. To fucking go.
Yeah.
You're dead.
We're done here.
Yeah, exactly.
No, look, Cubs up. Look, it's 2-1. Cubs are on the board.
Oh, somebody's on third. Yeah.
Yep, here we go.
Yeah.
But so anyway, maybe we ought to wrap this thing up, sir.
But Dyatlov Pass is something that I've been doing research on for months. And
crazy.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. And it looks like tie game.
Let's go. Sorry.
The Cubs and Cards tied. What is that? 2-2 at the bottom of the third. Hell yeah. But
you can cut that part out, actually, if you'd like. It'd probably make your podcast a little more timeless if I'm not yelling at the Cubs game. Just remember, it's right here at the end.
But yeah, we had Graham and I came up with our own theory that actually is coherent and probably would happen.
Dude, we didn't drink any whiskey.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Dude, we got some good work done today.
Hell yeah, we did. Yep. This is what efficient podcasting sounds like. But anyway, 443-747-1417. That is the number to get in touch with Pod Caviar. You can text that number. You can call that number. Here's a fun fact. Nobody's ever used that number. So
I'm gonna call you this
forward,
week.
please, yes, thank you.
It
just takes one call that will ignite the fire.
Well, and my listeners, like I said, I'm going to use this episode as a bonus episode of my podcast. I don't know why I haven't done this before, but obviously, it's good advertisement for your podcast.
Oh yeah.
It puts your, and it's a free episode of my podcast basically.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to do it because I
take a whole week off if you want.
Yeah, I think you do great work here, and I'm gonna, and so if my listeners hear that who call my hotline, give Tony a call. What was that number again, sir?
443-747-1417, 24/7. You can call me, text me, do whatever you want. I don't give a shit what you say. It could be crazy, it could be coherent, it could be criticizing, it could be praising. It could
be sound effects, animal sound effects.
It doesn't matter. But this has been another great episode. This is episode 7, dude. Season 2 is almost over.
Jesus.
The next
I don't
3
believe in
episodes. The next 3 episodes are a series of events that led up to September 11th.
Beautiful. Can't wait to get into it.
Yeah. Let me see. Thank you guys as always. I always want to give praise to everybody who listens. Thank you guys as always. Shirt Caviar is doing good. When I graduated college, I started my own business, and that business is called Shirt Caviar. You can go to shirtcaviar.com and pick you out a design, pick you out a shirt. And most of them are around $20, and they're all good. And if you order it, give me a picture, show me a picture, send it to the Shirt Caviar Instagram page, and I will post it, and I will tag you, and everybody wins in the end. It's one big hug that we all need on a cold winter day. I've been Tony. This is Pod Caviar, and I'm out.